Partly why the church has reached the place that it's reached. Okay, I think there's a level of revelation that has come in recent years. It's been there all along, but God is highlighting and underlining. And it's some of that stuff I want to talk about today. So, what I want to say is well done for getting here. And it will change the shape of it. There's fewer of us. But what I want to do is can we take a couple of the chairs out, pull in a little bit closer, and what we'll do is we're going to do a lot more discussing things today, and it's going to be a bit more interactive than talking. But what I believe, each one of you here, I've just walked around the room, looking around the room, and just celebrating each one of you for who you are, your part and place in what God is doing in this church. It's really exciting. Okay, so just pull that over into the middle a little bit, pull the chair, and just put it all in. What we won't do, so I thought we'd just talk around tables, but you know we're not. We're going to actually just have discussions and conversations as we go. So be brave if you've got something to say. Is that all right? So my first question is this. There's a song that we sing, and a line in the song goes something like this. We are your church. We are the hope on this earth. It's the Wren Collective song. We are your church. We are the hope on earth. How does that make you feel? What is your immediate kind of response to that statement? We are the hope on earth. What is it? How does it make you feel?
Joy, excitement,
Yeah.
trepidation.
Yeah. Responsibility. Yeah. Responsibility. Huge. I love it in the prodigal son. He puts a ring on his finger. Do you know why he puts a ring on his finger? Puts a signet ring on his finger. And in that culture, a signet ring is how you do business. You seal the business with the signet ring. And he's putting that ring on his finger, he's saying, I trust you. And that's the exact point, responsibility. He has given his church the responsibility of bringing all this stuff that we've been talking about. But, you know, that first week, the kingdom here on earth, all things everywhere being filled with himself. We've been entrusted with that. Anyone else? We are your church. We are your hope on earth.
There's so disappointment because the earth doesn't know it.
Yeah. For me, when I first sung that, there was this reaction in me that said, that's not true.
Yeah, that's the same as me.
That's not true. Jesus, he's our only hope. And the truth is that Jesus is the hope of the nations. It's him. But he's chosen to bring that hope to the nations through God in Christ. So I sing it with enthusiasm, but like, you know, for me initially it was like, well, that's
It's not right.
And I think it touches what I'm going to talk about in a moment, about worldviews, and how there's been a shift of worldviews, away from one particular worldview into another worldview. So we're going to talk about that in a few moments' time. But any other reactions? I'm going to play something I played on Sunday, because I just love this. If you were here on Sunday, you would have seen this. Oh.
There's a remote control up there.
It should be okay. It's working earlier. Here we go. It's all right. Should come on automatically.
There we are.
There we go.
Got it.
What do you do? It's always very difficult to know what to say. Because if I say to you that reverend, which I am, that conjures up certain images in people's minds as to what I might be. So I like to be a little bit creative in telling people what I do. I sat next to this lady on an aeroplane at Heathrow Airport, and I said, hello. And she said, well, hello. And I said, where are you going? And she says, I'm going to Singapore. Then she said to me, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Australia. I said, what do you do? So she told me. Then she said, what do you do? And I said, well, I work for a global enterprise. She said, do you? I said, yes, I do. I said, we've got outlets in nearly every country of the world. She said, have you? I said, yes, we have. I said, we've got hospitals and hospices and homeless shelters. I said, we do marriage work, we've got orphanages, we've got feeding programs, educational programs. I said, we do all sorts of justice and reconciliation things. I said, basically, we look after people from birth to death, and we deal in the area of behavioural alteration. She went, wow! And it was so loud, her wow. Loads of people turned around and looked at us. She says, what's it called? I said, it's called the church. And that's it really, isn't it? If we are a follower of Jesus, then we are part of a global enterprise. But not only is it global, it's intergalactic, because it includes everyone that's gone before us. Wow.
I argue with a lot of people about what I'm about to say next. Money is not something you earn. Oh, look, you...
Sorry. It goes back to, why do we read Isaiah 6? Whom shall I send? Yeah. This is about the sentness of the church. The problem is we've become, over many, many years, very gather-orientated. And we've lost sight of the sentness of the church. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So, I want to start with giving you a picture from Nehemiah, way back in the Old Testament. Because what happened in Nehemiah is, the story, how Nehemiah was called from Assyria, I think it was, and he came. He heard about the problem of the walls around the temple and the city not being built. So he comes. Ezra's built the temple. It wasn't quite as good as the last one. But Nehemiah comes, this amazing story, he comes, and for years he builds the walls around the temple. But he doesn't just build the walls around the temple, he also implements godly rule. So it's not just about walls, it's about godly community. So you've got this building of godly community, protected by the walls, and then what we've got is the worshipping community right in the middle of it. Hi Janet. Seat there if you want to be. There's a worshipping community right in the middle of it. But what happens is he has to go back to Assyria. So he has to go back, so he's away for 14 years. So then what happens is, after 14 years, he comes back. And what he does is he's walking into the community. And I just kind of using my imagination here. I kind of half imagine him sort of walking in, as he comes into the community, and it's just like suddenly he stops. And he's like, whoa, can't hear the worship. And you read the final chapter of Nehemiah, and you find that they've intermarried. So they've married outside of their people, so their family values were being eroded. They'd enter into unholy alliances. So Sanballat and Tobiah, they connected with them, and their enemies were becoming their allies. And basically this was influencing, have a seat, Janet, influencing them. So then we've got basically they weren't obeying the Sabbath. They weren't giving priority to their time with God. Then finally they were building their own houses. It says that you're paneling your own houses. Well, and so the giving to the temple stops. And the reason I'm telling this is because in the midst of that community, in the midst of that culture, that community, country even, the temple stopped worshipping and praying. I mean, basically because the people stopped giving. And there's a whole thing there about what we're investing in. But actually, if you think about it, something very powerful when the intercessory prayer and the worship stops, it starts to impact not just the church, but the wider community. So my question as we start this is if we don't, then who will? If we don't, then who will? And we can say things like, oh, God is sovereign and he will. And I'll go back to you straight away. And I said, if we don't, then who will? You know, we had the privilege of ministry in the inner city, one of the poorest communities in our country, when we first set out on this journey into church leadership. And, you know, we were ministering in a place where, let's be honest, the church has abandoned. They've walked away. They've gone to the suburbs. You know, where has that left the inner city? Well, I would say it's opened up a big old door to the Muslims, and you've seen an influx of mosques, and suddenly our inner cities are very, very different. I know it's more complicated than that, but I think sometimes when the church withdraws, doors are then opened which allows all sorts of other things to happen. Okay? And it's not just a physical thing. We're going to talk about this in a moment. There's a very kind of spiritual look. I hope today will just make you think that we are functioning at so many different levels. So I want to ask you a question at the start, and that is this: what is your worldview? So what is your worldview? So there are two worldviews that I want us to really think about today. Okay, as we come into this next section, which is about, for this section, it's about saying we need to understand the preciousness, power, importance, and influence of the church. Okay, that's what we want to do today. Okay, we want to understand this. The preciousness, if there is such a word, can I say preciousness? Precious nature. So you can grab a chair from the back and slide it. We're squeezing a little bit quieter today. Can you pull that?